Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and in this video we're breaking down the boys.
We left as inmates from an asylum.
So things are a bit screwed. Frenchie gets his last French kiss, Homelander is immortal, and to make matters worse, he's ascended to the Oval Office. We've got digs at your parents' favourite show writer Taylor Sheridan, and proof that cats and dogs do actually like each other. There's a hell of a lot to talk about in this episode, and throughout this breakdown, we'll be going through it all. We'll of course be back with a finale next week as well, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a breakdown. And yes, I know what you're thinking, that is a real Rolex.
Nope.
But out of the way though, thank you for clicking this, and thank you for looking at the fabulous costume. Now let's get into the boys.
Brother.
Okay, so we open with Oh Father rehearsing the big reveal that Homelander's now a god. Daveed Diggs crushes it as usual, delivering a song that basically calls Jesus a fraud. In case you didn't know, he was in a little musical called Hamilton, which you might have heard of. So having him do this sort of thing just makes a hell of a lot of sense, and yeah, the guy absolutely kills it. The sequence opens with a choir that we saw at A-Train's funeral, along with some dancing angels, which look like they'd be more at home at a Victoria's Secret fashion show. But there's no attempt here to pretend, or at least to be a reputable church, and this is all just for show and to worship a man whose ego's gotten way too big. Oh Father then sings,
"Now he turned water into wine, what a useless superpower."
Now this is something the Worm actually suggested that Homelander does at this reveal.
The bad version is he turns water into wine.
This comes from the book of John, which describes how when a wedding ran out of wine, Jesus turned water into it. Which, hey, at a wedding with no wine, I don't know if you'd consider that a useless superpower. Oh Father then says that a real god should make them cower, but also come to their defense. It's something that Homelander's been trying to get across since he said,
American heroes should be protecting America, not who gives a fuckistan.
It's weaponizing religion which goes against the teachings of Jesus, and it's clear he wants to become a malevolent god. Oh Father then says that healing a few lepers won't cure these open borders. It seems that despite dying, Firecracker's anti-refugee ideals live on in this performance.
He could part the Red Sea and send some refugees back where they came from.
He then says they need a new world order to restore some common sense. New world order is a loaded term that's been used in everything from saying by the original George Bush to Hulk Hogan's WCW group. It was also even the original title of Brave New World before they decided to change it because of the connotations around it. Most commonly, it's used by conspiracy theorists who say there's a group who controls the world. From 15-minute cities to the phrase "you'll own nothing and be happy," it was a term popularized by Pat Robinson, who was mentioned in episode 4. Here though, it's a clever switch, as Vought really controls the public and is really the New World Order. However, they're manufacturing consent for their control of society and now religion by creating fake threats. Because of this though, Vought has managed to slot themselves into every facet of life. He then sings that there will be no invisible man in the sky as he's right in front of our eyes. This plays on what he said to Annie last week, and we saw that he'd grown jaded with the blind faith needed to believe in a god he can't see. He'd have people ask him to pray for them, only to see those prayers go unanswered. Here though, there is a higher power, and Oh Father will do what he can to be in his good graces. But unfortunately, it's kind of building off the theme of the whole season, which is the idea of cults, worshipping false idols, and so on and so forth. Like Firecracker, he tossed aside his religion to worship a man who will kill him at the first sign of dissent. Homelander's been building to this for so long, and even back in season 3 he said,
No God. The only man in the sky is me.
Oh Father then says they need a god that they can see, and one who bleeds red, white and blue. Firecracker did say how the old school Jesus stuff like loving your neighbour and doing good deeds just doesn't sell anymore. The profit and money is all they care about, and the quest for money is of course the root of all evil or something. He then just grabs the asses of the dancers and thrusts himself about, and yeah, it's kinda sad how far stuff's fallen. But for now, Vought need a god that's American because that's a god they can control. Now I mentioned that this is like Bioshock Infinite, but it also reminds me of The Handmaid's Tale, which features a theocratic state which is the Republic of Gilead. There it's all about control and how using religion can be a means to do that through. So Vought is just weaponizing that as well, and Oh Father then talks about the throne, which is something that Homelander's also brought up.
We could put him on a throne on the Temple Mount. That is your poster right there. Amen.
He then says,
We just rebooted the universe.
Now, this is going beyond religion, and we later learn that the entire VCU is getting rebooted as well, and it's kind of funny how this new church just thinks of everything in terms of IP and media. And to be honest, when they said that, I did as well. The line between reality and fiction, though, must be very highly blurred in the world of The Boys. The heroes they see walking around appear in TV shows, comics, and movies, and they're something the people of the world can touch. The rehearsal then ends with a Homelander cutout making an appearance. The new god is too busy at the White House and would rather be in a place by himself that gives him a position of power than amongst the people that worship him. I do feel like this will play off into the finale. They'll have this big song and dance, Homelander will come down, and then the boys will make their attack. Everything does feel like it's kind of been building towards that, and I am interested to see if this is going to be where things go down at next week. But as we see, Oh Father isn't happy despite Chad the director thinking that they've killed it. I do wonder if this is a pursuit of perfectionism as a form of professionalism, or if he's scared of getting anything wrong lest his new god smite him. I do think that he should definitely be worried about being killed, but also that he's probably thinking he's immune due to being a true believer. This video is sponsored by Incogni. Now, we live in a society where you can get constantly bombarded with spam emails and calls day and night. Thousands of companies are collecting, aggregating, and trading your personal data without you knowing anything about it and using it as a way to interpret your life and things you want or need. With AI getting involved as well, they can basically send an infinite amount of things your way, and unfortunately, it's only going to get worse. As technology improves and you sign up to more things, your data is going to get passed around. Data brokers can then get a full picture of who you are, what you like, and if you watch Screen Crush or not. What? They can then sell this data, and those people can target you in a way like never before. Now, you do have the right to request that data brokers delete any information they have about you and protect your privacy. But guess what? The bad news is, you have to do it manually. You have to find these companies that have it in the first place, and every time you take one down, there's probably at least one other company that's now got your data. It's never ending, but that's where our sponsors Incogni come in to save the day. Incogni can do the messy work for you automatically. Incogni helps protect your privacy and takes your personal data off the market by reaching out to data brokers on your behalf, requesting your personal data removal, and dealing with their objections. You can also get an extra level of protection. With Incogni's custom removal feature in the Unlimited plan and Family Unlimited plan, you can point to any search site or other website where your personal information is visible, and one of their privacy agents will take care of the rest for you. As I'm sure you know, criminals online can use your data for fraud and more, and it's best just having that peace of mind, especially with all the news reports you'll see around data breaches. But if you use the code HEAVYSpoilers at incogni.com/heavyspoilers, you get an extra 60% off. Go to incogni.com/heavyspoilers and use the code HEAVYSpoilers for 60% off. Incogni helps wipe yourself from the internet, and they can't harm you if they can't find you. Just click that link below to claim that 60% off and get your personal data off the market. Now it's at this point that we cut to Homelander in the Oval Office, which might be one of the most memorable shots in the comics. There he'd staged his soup coup and had killed Vic the Veep. Vic the Veep was the VP, and he ended up becoming president after a rogue Wolverine killed Dakota Bob. Yeah. For years though, when we've been doing these videos, we've often talked about how we thought this scene would be adapted, and initially I thought Dakota Bob and Newman would be in the White House with the latter taking over the role. Around the start of season 4, I did think that Homelander would kill her, but obviously the show's gone in a wildly different direction. However, we've still ended up at the same place, and we watch as he kills former Speaker Calhoun. Homelander has been the leader of the United States, all in name since the end of season 4, with Calhoun being a plant by Vought. I did even wonder back then why Kripke just didn't make him president, as he was getting what he wanted anyway. However, I do understand that you still need to adhere to the rules of the world in which this takes place, so yeah, maybe having him run for president just wasn't on the cards or something. But from the off, we can instantly see who's in charge as he's sitting about with his feet up on the table. He then asserts his dominance over the president once again and says,
"You're welcome to use this office as long as you need."
I know.
Homelander then lists his demands as if they're his employees, and I think it's something which works really well, especially as Ashley has failed her way up to her current position. He says the Democratic Church of America is the true religion, and I expect the last church holdouts will be dealt with brutally. I can imagine that they might even show this in newsreel footage that opens things up next time, but hey, we'll see you next week for that one. He also wants troops sent into sanctuary cities that tuck in starlighters. This is a reference to the real-life US sanctuary cities that try not to comply with federal immigration laws. That's something that's been a huge talking point in US politics for a while now, and this could lead to civil unrest, which was predicted a few episodes ago. Homelander also wants abortions banned, and again, this is a big talking point in US politics due to the Supreme Court ruling on Roe v. Wade. He also demands that breastfeeding be mandatory, and we all know why. My guy also loves milk so much that he says he wants nut milk banned, and even says,
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was making you think nuts were milk.
this is something that mirrors real life as well, as nut and soy milk are often seen as being on the left.
Almond milk. All I want's proper bloody milk, not left-wing options, proper milk. What's wrong with me asking for that?
RFK Jr. has even pushed campaigns encouraging people to drink more whole milk, and at the same time, some influencers have been promoting raw milk.
We don't have a cow. We have a bull.
This also plays off what Sage said in episode 2.
We've so far identified the location of 10,000 active Starlight sympathizers. Coincidentally, the map is almost identical to where the most nut milks are consumed.
What everything boils down to, though, is that Homelander is coming up with politics that only he's interested in. He's an immortal man who's indestructible, but doesn't care about helping others. Everything from these demands is purely done to benefit himself, and he's not the savior he claims to be. President Calhoun then says the ideas are great, but he needs to run them by Congress. However, Homelander demands that he just disbands them like some fucking Palpatine or some shit. Homelander gets very angry though, as Calhoun says he doesn't have the authority to disband Congress. This to Homelander shows he's not a true believer, which Homelander gets Ashley to prove. Like everyone around Homelander, he's just a scared little person who's traded their morals for power. You'll often see throughout history how figures who help leaders reach a certain position are often betrayed when they question them. Hell, like if you look at Stalin, he's got like tons of photos where people were just removed and doctored, and yeah, happens a lot in politics where certain people get ousted from their positions of power as soon as they question what's going on. As we've seen though, Homelander handed him the presidency, but like any position Vought gives, it just ended up being a poisoned chalice. What's also key here is that Ashley too doesn't want to throw Calhoun under the bus, but out of survival instincts, Ashley Prime reveals the news. She's now fully lost it, but she does this because she's a sniffs closer to being next to that ultimate power. Like the Deep, she's somehow survived, but though she thinks she's getting more power, she's actually not. She's losing her grip and just becoming a tool for Homelander to read minds, and she'll be killed the second that she has no use. However, I do wonder if this might even be a way to manipulate the villain. Potentially, she could say someone like our father's betraying him, which would play upon his Caesar complex. He might even end up killing the Deep if Ashley says that the soup has doubts, and yeah, after this episode, I can see that he would have. This scene is all about showing what Homelander does to his daughters though, and within a second he crushes Calhoun's head. Really, it just plays into his insecurity and how all the comments have gotten to him this season about how pathetic that he is. So people like the president are simply just enforcing that view, and rather than having a moment of reflection, he simply just ends up killing him. The legend was actually the one who explained why he might be the way he is, and thus he let him live as he actually tried to understand exactly what was going on with him, and view him as a person instead of just like a pathetic man with power. We are kind of burying the lead though, and at the moment, Ashley is now the president, which is something she's wanted for a while.
You know, I couldn't help but notice. You registered barrettforpresident.com, net, and org.
It's exploratory.
Sage said that as long as she stays useful, that everything will come up Ashley, but as we've seen, it's been a deal with the devil. She now has the same blood on her hands that Homelander does, and later on when we see her at the Oval Office, Ashley too says that they need the UN or NATO to help. Ashley 1, however, is happy for the moment. She lost every student council election, but now she's the president. I mean, she also got both the VP and POTUS roles as the previous incumbents were both brutally killed, but she did still make it in a way. In reality though, she's not there on merit, just loyalty, and it's a loyalty that's born out of fear. Ashley too then says that she got the president killed as she always had a choice. Not only can she read other people's minds, but she can read Ashley Prime's as well, and knows that she secretly hates herself and can't sleep. Ashley 1 copes though and says she should be proud she's alive, as it's so hard not to die in Vought in Homelander's presence. Ashley 2 then says that she won't talk to her again, which means she will no longer be useful and her death might be coming. It actually also nicely reflects the Deep, who has been abandoned as well, but we will talk about that more when we get to that later. So yeah, that we then cut a Mother's Milk and finally get some Gen V presence in The Boys Season 5. Though Maverick did appear earlier, I have to say, been a bit of a letdown that they're only appearing now. I am hoping they'll pop up in a much bigger way next time, especially with the ending of the episode, and the fact that we had Kate's photo on the wall last week. But as for now, this is all we're going to get of them, and also all we're going to get of Ryan as well, I feel, is like the finale. In case you don't know though, the last season of Gen V ended with the Godolkin exiles joining the Resistance. Annie then recruited them along with A-Train, and I did expect to see them more throughout the season. However, Annie said that the resistance cell had been killed, which left just her at the school. In these moments, we only get a nod of Emma, and Sam isn't mentioned either, despite being insanely powerful. And my guy, you have been on Fraud Watch forever. We do know as well that Gen V has also been cancelled, though the characters will apparently return in other means. I even wonder if with the addition of Vought Rising that we might see how the school was set up in the first place. Over the last couple of years though, I've had lots of theories about how they'll use Marie, as Gen V kind of set her up as the antithesis to Homelander's Antichrist.
Heard that you're like the chosen one and have Homelander level strength or some shit.
She was the only other survivor of Project Odessa and was an outcast that wasn't accepted by the company. Marie performed many miracles, and even the name is a variation of Mary. Because of this, since the last episode, I was even wondering if they might use Marie to remove the V1 from Homelander's blood. However, we simply get a fleeting cameo here, though she does appear at the end, so yeah, praying she plays a bigger role next time. While waiting for them, we also see Mother's Milk wearing the same glasses as his comic book counterpart. He's also got another hip-hop shirt on, and this one says Biz Markie Day, with Biz Markie being a legendary US rapper and beatboxer. If you like t-shirts as well, mate, then why not check out our merch store right below the video. There we have our deep inspired one, and if you like fishes like that, then why not check out our shirt that's also inspired by Jaws. Lots of big discounts just in time for the summer as well, so grab yourself a deal because you're gonna look bloody brilliant. Now we learn that Emma has been tracking O-Father and that he's spent all his time at Vought Studios. The studio has a hell of a lot of security, and Annie tells the Gen V lot to stand down. For them, the war is over. They're desperate to help though, and we get an insight as to why Marie hasn't been featured more. Annie says, what use is all that power if she can't control it? In Gen V, Marie struggled across both seasons to really unlock and control her power, which is something that killed her parents. But I was sure, season 3 was all about her getting to grips with it. So I do wonder if they ran out of space in the episodes and maybe didn't want a character from Gen V to take out Homelander. As we know from the season though, she can resurrect the dead, which seems like it's a pretty useful power, especially with how we leave things with Frenchie. For now though, Marie feels let down by Annie, who's become jaded. Moreau then brings up the audition tape on the Dawn for the 7 Blu-ray, which we actually saw being recorded in the first episode of The Boys. Off the back of this, Marie looked up to her, and throughout their lives they've had lots of similarities. Both came to learn that their dream was a corporate lie and all part of marketing. Annie says that she meant what she said back then, but Marie feels let down by her hero giving up. We can see just how jaded both Annie and Mother's Milk are as they both turn to drugs and drink to dull things. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just that it's so out of character for them. We then hear Goodnight Saigon by Billy Joel as we cut to Huey listening to it. He's of course a massive Billy Joel fan, which is something that pays off later in the studio. This is a song about how we'll all go down together though, and it's kind of a final cheer and celebration of going out in a blaze of glory. It works perfectly as a metaphor for the boys, as in this, Huey and co are the Viet Cong. They're in a war fighting against a much more powerful force, but they've still managed to get a few licks in. Goodnight Saigon was mainly influenced by friends of Joel who left for the war and came back changed. Huey's been disturbed by everything he's gone through, and it's in this episode that he really starts to lose hope. We then hear as the music's broken up by Kimiko screaming, and he rushes out to see what's going on. You can also see he's wearing a Traveling Willoughby's t-shirt, who are probably one of the most famous supergroups of all time. As we predicted though, Billy and Frenchie have transferred the radiation chamber from Fort Harmony to the school. So it's a theory time confirmed, motherfuckers! We thought that because uranium could kill a soup that it might work on Homelander, but we see towards the end of the episode, doesn't necessarily go to plan. We kind of learn what's in place for the plan, and at the moment they're trying to mimic what the Soviets did in giving Soldier Boy nuclear powers. This builds off the back of their trip to Fort Harmony, and we ended that episode with Billy watching footage of their experiments. Soldier Boy was exposed to an atom bomb's worth of radiation, and Billy also refers to the research they stole in Season 3. They're hoping to do the same thing to Kimiko, and this is so they can burn the V from Homelander's body. This is something that we saw last week, and it is possible that Soldier Boy may also be another factor in the fight against Homie. Billy says they can do this quicker than the Russians as they have a supercomputer, aka Sage. However, we have seen that she has some limitations in her intelligence as she couldn't replicate V1. She's also on a massive depressive self-pity party at the moment, self-medicating and watching Love Island after she failed to predict what Soldier Boy was gonna do. Reality TV is like fast food for her and just a way to basically binge junk. So Kimiko has decided to do this herself. She has that healing factor and is the most resilient out of all the soups, minus Soldier Boy and Homelander, so she stands the best chance. The plan is to then head to Vought Studios while Frenchie carries on with the radiation plan. They hope to interrogate Father and also do the Even Huey has now lost hope though and wants to run, feeling that they've lost the war. This I think shows that they're at their lowest point, as last week he was like the one person carrying the fire still. We then get an insane halftime speech from Billy and he says,
"Posh Spice was easily the most shit member of the squad."
"Fucking hell, mate. Growing up, she was my favourite, mate. The leather in the Say You'll Be There that video, that changed me forever, that." But he says she can't sing, can't dance, and wasn't featured on Wannabe, which was the breakout hit for the band. But she is very much a sign of resilience. She may have been the worst member of the Spice Girls, but she's still married to Bex, despite his trip to the loos in Madrid, which, yeah, if you know, you know. Basically he's saying though that don't give up despite being at a massive disadvantage. Go on lads, spice up your life. I get that feeling as well though sometimes, mate, because I'm a bloody British YouTuber with no discernible skill. The lighting is terrible, thumbnails aren't even that good, but I still push on because I'm doing it for the boys. We then cut to the 7th Tower as the Deep apologizes for killing Black Noir. What I find most ironic about this whole thing though is that he's standing in the same spot that the original Noir died. But once again, just like what they did with Firecracker, there's no funeral and it seems like they're covering up the deaths. The VMC ad for her was still playing like she was still alive, and we even saw the dead jet streak like the Deep's post last week. The Deep then grovels and says he did what he did because Noir was saying some horrible things about Homelander. The good news is though, it doesn't matter as he's forgiven. Bad news is, the 7 is being disbanded and he's been fired.
Let's be honest, there hasn't been 7 members of the 7 in quite some time. It's a bit of a running joke.
That it has, and we actually talked about how this was a running joke back a couple of breakdowns ago. And I feel like Kripke must have a machine or something because he keeps calling all this shit early. But yeah, we haven't had a full 7 since season 1 when Annie joined the team replacing Lamplighter. That season saw the Deep then be fired and Translucent killed, and since then the 7's been like a revolving door. Starlight left, Stormfront and Supersonic were killed, and we then had A-Train quitting while Maeve faked her death. Firecracker then got killed as well, Black Noir got killed again, and Sage is left too, so yeah, just the members are all over the place. The number, it's never fucking 7. The Deep then begs to be given the opportunity to lead as Homelander ascends to godhood, but he still gets denied. Homelander doesn't need the team now, and the Deep begs and almost cries, saying how he was the most loyal. He's done everything Homelander's asked of him, including a lot of assassinations, but he's simply been brushed to the side by a man who wants power for himself. He doesn't care about the sacrifice that others have made, and has gotten rid of whoever that he needed to. It's all been for naught, and all been for Vought. But the Deep is like that guy who's the office snitch and brown-noser who, despite being loyal to the company, gets shit-canned at the next round of layoffs. Again, it kind of plays into what Kripke's going for, and how egotistical leaders will just get rid of whoever they can once they've served their purpose. Now though, things are much worse because as we see later, he can't return to the sea. This erasure and the sort of thing that we saw with Stalin is then played upon even more when we cut to Vought Studios. The images of the 7 are all being erased and simply replaced by an image of Homie. We can see the Deep on the left and A-Train on the right, and to the right of the Deep we also have what I believe is Lamplighter. But let me know below if that's not the case, and I will delete and hide your comment. As we see though, the boys are infiltrating the studio with Starlight and Huey wearing baseball caps. This is something that's been a staple MCU disguise, and it's also been brought to this series as well. At the moment though, the plan is to knock out O'Father and then interrogate him and find out what's going on. We then cut to one of the shows and see Eagle the Archer, who's filming a scene for American Eagle. Now this might be a nod to the clothing brand, which itself ran into some scandals with its CEO. As for Eagle, he's of course a Hawkeye parody that we met earlier in the series. He left the Church of the Collective after he started it out that they were helping his career, and as such his sex tape was leaked to the public. The Deep mentioned that he was trying to become a rapper, and it seems like he's found work on a Taylor Sheridan knockoff. In the scene we see he's trying to apprehend Starlight, who's smuggling people across the border. She helped a woman's child become a birthright citizen, which is something that's also been a big talking point in the news lately. She then says, just imagine the whole area filled with strip malls, subdivisions and hamburger places. They could be rich, but he says it's something those Manhattan elites don't understand, and it shows the massive divide between the city and rural folk. This has been spurred on by the media portraying cities as PvP zones and rural living as the true America. As we know, Vought don't care about this either though, and probably just want to get these people on side so they can build where they want. Starlight just seems to be the villain in everything they're making, and we'll often see how certain figures get blamed for absolutely everything. Like that piece of shit Ryan Airy. We also see that the show is being cancelled, and learn the Worm is directing yet another finale and failing. Not only is Homelander abolishing the Seven, but he's also rebooting the entire universe. We have seen this several times in real life, where a reboot means that everyone gets recast, even if they're popular. Well, unless you're like Judi Dench in Bond, or J.K. Simmons in Spider-Man. But beyond that, everyone's dead. Jason Momoa, you can come back. We will get you as Lobo. I'm actually shocked that the Worm is still alive though, after helping Billy and Co break out the Freedom Camp, and I do wonder if the VCU will have its own post-Endgame problems, but I think that Homelander at the moment is just positioning himself as the centerpiece of the new reboot. It's kind of like John Cena or something in DC. Eagle the Archer then asks the Worm to write a finale that doesn't suck, which is funny as I keep seeing people hate this season so far, but I'm actually quite enjoying it. Now it turns out they have a Taylor Sheridan AI that doesn't take notes. He's of course the mega producer behind the Yellowstone franchise, Tulsa King, Landman, Marshalls, and so on and so forth. Basically everything my uncle watches on Paramount Plus. The plot of Starlight wanting to build strip malls on rural land is also similar to Yellowstone. Their developers want to build on the Dutton Ranch, and so it seems like the Taylor Sheridan AI is regurgitating the plot points from that. And even the poster looks very, very Yellowstone-y. Beside that is what looks like a new Homelander production, and his face is of course everywhere, highlighting he's the face of the studio now. As we mentioned, he slowly replaced A-Train on the Turbo Rush cans, and they probably want to position him to be the one and only Soup. I'd even love it if it's revealed that Homelander wants to unleash the virus and kill every single Soup on the planet, just so he can be number one. I also love it if the Worm survives and ends up writing an amazing finale based on the events of the show. Like Wormhole Extreme from Stargate. We then see a VFX guy wearing a Not Without My Dolphin crew hoodie. This was a movie adaptation of the Deep's memoirs that detailed his life in the Seven along with the Church of the Collective. It's an Easter egg that we pointed out before, along with the name being a play on the movie Not Without My Daughter. And if you ever want to know how the videos are 50 minutes long, it's because we keep pointing out the same Easter egg over and over and over.
And we have become exceedingly efficient at it.
Get that watch time up. We then cut to Sage, who's constantly lobotomizing herself to try and shut off from dealing with her failure. There's a Brave Maeve diary along with some firecracker Cheetos and a Starlight dildo that we saw in season 3. Frenchie then asks Sage for help with the radiation, saying that if they get it wrong, then Kimiko's deader than Epstein. But is he, mate? He says that he loves Kimiko and can't lose her, but Sage is cold and logical, saying that love is an error. She doesn't understand how a beautiful and brilliant man like Soldier Boy could lose his damn mind, and this was the big flaw in her plan. Stormfront bringing Soldier Boy and Homelander together was something she didn't foresee happening, and this was down to Soldier Boy's love for the character. This is something she couldn't predict, and thus Sage has lost all hope just like Huey. But Frenchie appeals to her self-preservation by saying that Homelander is dangerous to her as well as them. Now I am still hoping this is a long play, as in season 4 Homelander messed up, but that was part of her plan, and thus she returned to carry out the rest of her plan. She also let Polarity leave and head back to Godolkin. So these things might be building to something else, but for now she's not helping and then lobotomizes herself. Cutting back to Vought Studios, Billy and Huey then joke about Homelander presenting himself with a song and dance number. Huey's then quizzed about his favourite Billy Joel songs to stop the psychic from hearing their thoughts. As we mentioned earlier, we saw a lineup of these last week, and I did think Kate might be brought in as a way to convince the country that Homelander was the second coming. Sort of like the spell from No Way Home, but without the magic, and instead of getting people to forget, being like, remember, Homelander is the second coming. Also love how, despite everything, Huey's very passionate about his ranking, and as a big Billy Joel fan myself, I appreciated it too. And yes, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant is great. It's on the Stranger LP, go check it out actually go check it out now, it'll be better than this shit. But yeah, he goes through the list, doesn't mention Uptown Girl, and this shows that my guy is a real Billy Joel head. We then learn that Synapse is the bodyguard for O-Father, and I appreciate the two-seater sweater. As for the rest, they're used for the focus group, and I am suspecting that we might also see Rufus from Gen V if psychics are a huge part of the ending. We then cut to the Deep, who we catch distraught and drinking. When he was first kicked off the Seven, he ended up drunk at a water park, and now he's repeating that cycle. Against his morals, he throws the A-Train cans into the sea, and a shark tells him to get it. He's voiced by none other than Samuel L. Jackson, which was such a left field cameo. Like, I had to triple take it was him. Shouldn't be too much of a surprise though, as Ambrosia was voiced by Tilda Swinton, and clearly they're not opposed to getting big names for the big fish. He then tries to lure the deep into the water because if he gets in, it's on sight. Due to the pipeline genocide, he's been exiled from the sea, and as the deep's whole thing is water, not being able to return means his entire career's over. Milk and Annie then spot Synapse as they hit the vape to stop being noticed. Turns out weed is the best way to stop psychics, and there's no Billy Joel needed here. Magneto didn't need that silly helmet, he just needed to take a Dragnito. Father then greets a group of home teamers who are here to focus test a new advert. One guy has a Soups Live Matter t-shirt, which is the same phrase that Blue Hawk said in season 3.
Soup lives matter! Soup lives matter! Soup lives matter!
These are die-hard Homelander fans just like Todd, but we see how they're also threatened the same way. Behind them we can also see a poster for a Homelander film which looks like a one for James Gunn's Superman. As we see, these people have been chosen for their online support of Homelander, and they're kind of an opposite to those who shared pro-Starlighter views or liked a post and then got sent to the freedom camps. But here they get sent to death. We see a woman getting a photo with Dognot, but I kind of feel like he stinks. There's also some Lean Lady diet water which we saw She-Line promote earlier in the season. What makes it hilarious though is that she declines it, saying I'm a cat, and she was just advertising it Vought. Father then presents the promo while the psychics watch and make notes, clearly showing they're getting real and unfiltered thoughts. We cut to Annie and Mother's Milk, who sneak in and see Grey Matter and Psy-KO, with the latter being a play on Psycho. Hey, both are also psychotic soups who've been let out of Elmira like Synapse and are vicious, brutal murderers. This was the same place that the Godolphin crew were taken to at the end of season 1, and we even saw some of the inmates when Kate was taken there in season 2. And I do wonder if the guy with cropped hair will be seen again. But they are now working for the regime, just like the Sage Grove escapees such as Love Sausage and Cindy. The promo then plays, showing Homelander running his hand through some crops looking very Gladiator-esque. The VFX have not been finished, and we can see that the field and background need to be extended. Now, little peek behind the curtain here, guys. Sometimes like studios will send out screeners with unfinished VFX, and I even question if that's the way it's going to look in the final product or if it's going to be fixed. And watching this scene, I was like, are they going to fix it, or is that the whole point of the joke? But yeah, I actually remember watching The Last of Us season 1 finale, and the scene where the giraffe was like coming in, that was actually just all a blue screen with no giraffe and just the actors reacting to a green box. And you were watching that, like trying to review it, being like, I don't know what I can say about this. But studios do this a lot. If you ever get invited to a test screening or something, chances are the VFX are going to be unfinished, and you're going to be like, well, I can kind of imagine how this would be good. So yeah, that's kind of what they're going through here with the focus testing. And we have little notes like how a blinding light's needed, which is what Homelander saw when Stillwell appeared to him. We then see Jesus himself descending on cables, looking like how Homelander appears when landing. Jesus says that he's taken the fight as far as he can go, and he mentions the corrupt FBI, which yet you can guess which famous politician also had beef with that agency. He also brings up lots of other political talking points and says they need a real savior who can get them real results, as turning the other cheek has failed. It's clearly just the company putting culture war talking points to Jesus and twisting what he stood for to push their own beliefs. People are confused when Jesus says they need real American values, and the promo doesn't seem to be going down too well. Homelander has likened himself to Jesus before though, by saying he understands what it's like to be immaculately conceived and not be thanked for his selfless service. Jesus then hands over his crown of thorns, anointing Homelander. This was placed on Jesus' head to mock him during the crucifixion, but here it's a crown that will make him the second coming. Also cracked up seeing the eagle, and Father seems to be happy with it so far. The audience reception is far from what he was expecting though, showing that Homelander being seen as a god or Jesus or whatever this is supposed to mean is going to be an uphill battle with the country. We've even seen it recently with politicians where there's been lots of backlash from their own side when they've posted pictures of themselves as like a doctor, or so, like a doctor healing the sick or whatever it was. I didn't know. Is that what that was? A doctor, was it? We then cut to what appears to be a rebranding of Vaughtland into Homeland with a statue that feels like it's ripping off the one of Jesus in Rio. He gives his dad the layout of the land and says there'll be a huge statue of him where he supposedly had his vision. There's a birth of Homelander area, the story of God, one I can't quite make out behind the statue, and also Soldier Boy, the father of God. Homeland, of course, has its own connotations as well, and you'll often hear about people going on a religious pilgrimage and returning to the homeland. The entrance to Vaughtland still has the castle walls that we saw in Season 3, and this is of course a Disneyland parody. But everything's been upgraded to stroke this guy's ego, and Soldier Boy Land even has a massive statue of him in front of a jeep, which is a huge upgrade from the Soldier Boy Ahoy show. This is going to be the fast ride area, complete with a ticker tape parade each night. Soldier Boy's uninterested though, as he doesn't believe in this god stuff. With the 7 disbanded, he's heading off to Pagoda for some sun, shagging and coke. His son even suggests he can get him all the drugs and old hookers that he likes, and as we know, Soldier Boy likes them old. The last thing he wants though is to be around his son. He has no interest in spending time with him, which is far from the love that Homelander actually needs. He's also a massive dickhead as well, so chances are that him being around is only going to make things worse. Homelander's offended though, saying that he welded Soldier Boy's shield back together, but he never actually uses it. We saw that in episode 2 and how it broke when he threw it into Billy's car, but it seems like Homelander's fixed it. He also has a 3-star Michelin chef, but Soldier Boy's just stuck in his way and eats meatloaf for every meal. This is something that reminds me of Steve Rogers, who said, "The food is better now, as back then they used to boil absolutely everything." But Soldier Boy clearly likes it. Homelander even arranged for a new suit for the character that somehow looks worse than Ryan's Homeboy costume design. It's adorned in the stars and stripes much like Homelander's costume and feels a lot like the Iron Patriot one from the MCU. Interestingly, the mock-up depicts Soldier Boy in the Oval Office, and I do wonder if he's also going to be putting him in a position of power. But Soldier Boy clarifies that he gave the V1 because of Clara. I find all of this really interesting, as Season 3 set up his love interest as Crimson Countess, but I do feel like they've kind of retconned it, and thus Vought Rising's going to explore that more. Soldier Boy then says that Homelander is just too weird, which doesn't actually infuriate him until he says he's no god.
You had a wet dream about some chick with big juicy tits.
Even his own flesh and blood doesn't believe in him, and thus Homelander sees red. He knocks out Soldier Boy and puts him back in the chamber, with this potentially setting him up to switch sides if he's freed next week. It's important to note as well that he doesn't kill him like Firecracker, as he can't be without him. Just like Stormfront, he keeps him in his room again and refuses to let this person go even though they want to. I expect that as they couldn't replicate the nuclear powers, Billy will somehow get Soldier Boy to use his powers on Homelander, with maybe Ryan in the mix as well. We then cut to Huey and Billy, who are stuck at Vought Studios jail. Billy can't use his powers due to synapse, and the pair bicker, with Huey asking him if he's clutching at straws. Billy then says that he's gonna get the job done, even if he has to drag Huey over the finish line. It's a better pep talk than earlier, and it foreshadows the true end of the comics, which is something we'll break down in our spoiler section. We then think Huey agrees with Butcher, but it's just another Billy Joel song. Cutting to Kimiko, the experiment's not going well as Frenchie begs her to stop, as her healing powers starting to be less effective. In the X-Men comics, both Deadpool and Wolverine's healing factor could be worn down, and over time, they recovered less and less. Frenchie then says he's thought about having children and floats the idea of moving to Marseille in the south of France. He wants to raise their kids there, despite mentioning a nomadic lifestyle earlier in the season. It's tragic though, as he dies at the end of the episode and will never adopt Simone and have the life they could have. It's all been taken away by Homelander and is a big change from the comics, which is also something I'll talk about in the spoiler section. Looks like Kimiko cannot take any more, and we then cut to Frenchie bringing Sage a wrap. She's very angry as she wanted a chalupa, which is something that she mentioned when drinking with Ashley. Frenchie's just doing whatever he can to get her on side though, but at the moment, she's not that interested. Sage is watching Love Island, and we learn that Frenchie is also a big fan. Used to watch it myself, and though I haven't seen this season specifically, I do know Casa wrecked a lot of couples in the housemate, and I was bloody fuming. Love Island breakdowns coming soon. She projects her own anger at being betrayed by Soldier Boy, and Frenchie tries to get her to stop wallowing in her self-pity. As they talk, we see just how low her IQ is when she's been lobotomized, as there's a prime bottle on a table near Frenchie. And what happened to that brand? Not seen it mentioned since like WrestleMania 39. Frenchie then explains how much he loves Kimiko, and she says that love is ridiculous. But he says it's wonderful that she doesn't understand love, as there's still mystery in the world. She then agrees to help, as she remembers her grandmother, who was the only member of her family who didn't mind her powers. When she was younger, her grandmother had leukemia, and Sage came up with a treatment plan and cure. However, the doctors ignored her, leading to her grandmother's death, but this has shown her that she does know what love is. Here, she's given a second chance to save someone else and actually use her powers for good after that experience jaded her for life. She then agrees to help once her brain fixes itself, and after her sesh with the Starlight dildo. Back at the focus group, they're then given questionnaires, and Synapse pretends to be Huey. This is a reversal of season 4, where a shapeshifter pretended to be Annie. Feels like a massive nod to Terminator, where Arnie pretended to be Sarah Connor's mum in the first film, and then we had the T-1000 as John's adoptive parents in T2. We also see that the focus group is in the Tech Night Theatre. Home teamer Rachel is in awe of Homelander, and she says that he's selfless, and out of them, she seems to be the one who's sucked on that Homelander Kool-Aid the most. Or is it milk? But as we see, that is a lie, and most of them are kept behind because the psychics can read their dissenting minds. We see one of them passing out to O-Father with the names of people who truly believe in Homelander and like the promo. Meanwhile, Milk is confused if Homelander was God, the second coming, or Jesus' brother. And to be honest, when I was writing that part of the script, I was a bit confused myself. Starlight says that these people will believe what they want. Annie is the true hero as she saves people that think she's pure evil, while Homelander kills people who love him but aren't 100% sold on the fact that he's a god. We then get an origin story for Mother's Milk's nickname. After his grandfather's death, he was called soft and put all his efforts into trying to save a pigeon with a broken wing. Despite doing a good deed, he was made fun of by the kids who turned Marvin Milk into Mother's Milk. This is wildly different in the comics, and there his beef with Vought and the Soups originated because his mother was exposed to unrefined compound B. She then breastfed him, but when it came time to wean him off, he started to shrivel up and become malnourished. This meant he needed to drink his mother's milk for far longer than normal. His father sued Vought and won, but it took a toll on him, and when Marvin's brother died due to his powers manifesting and killing him, he ended up suing again. This all got too much though, and unfortunately it led to a heart attack. Now I actually prefer the show's origin story, as the comic had Marvin's mother turn into a compound B mutant with tentacle tits, which was weird. It also shows that he was always a good guy and would help those in need while others looked the other way. The mocking and insults never hurt him, and he took ownership of this new name and what it truly showed him as being. Deep down, he kept this name because it shows he's a good person, and when it comes to the boys, he's usually the dad of the group. Even after they disbanded, he became a juvenile prisoner counselor, which we saw in season 1, and despite everything he's seen, he has kept the faith a bit. Well, up until the freedom camps. There he became cynical, and at this moment he says it's actually harder to give a shit in a world that doesn't give a shit. This story is very empowering though, and the fact that Milk talks about helping people, it reminds Annie of what she can do as well. I think this is a big change within her, as she's a character who's also become cynical. She started season 5 in a very dark place, even thinking that Billy's way was best. She didn't want to save Huey as it would put him in danger, and even told the God you lot to stand down. This pep talk inspires her to save people who've been conditioned to hate her, and in the end she goes back to Marie. She realizes that just like real life, the algorithms and media propaganda so hate and divide us. It's in a corporation and politicians' interest to get us to fight amongst ourselves, so we stay divided and don't turn our attention to them. Sides rail against each other so they can fight the war for the person in charge who doesn't give a shit about them, and in reality, when you speak to people day to day in real life, you'll often find that you get along with pretty much all of them. Now, I love the way that the show had this change happen in Annie, and it's a great way to take her back to what she was. We then see as they rush to the vent as Sheline walks in looking for the pair. Thinking she's alone, she then cleans herself, which is certainly something. Dognot then comes in and can smell what she had for lunch after smelling her butt. It's absolutely vile, as she also does the same thing and calls him a bad boy. We then see a rat as well, which is used later to distract Sheline. After this we cut to Homelander, who's busy looking after his father like the opening of the season. He doesn't care about his dad having autonomy either, and is happy to lock him up rather than letting him go out in the world without him. O-Father then rings up and calls him Lord, which is a name he floated in the previous episode. He then tells him that the boys are there, but the petty grudges get in the way of him whipping his mortal enemies. He could go there, easily wipe them out, end this once and for all, but instead he wants to get revenge on Sage. He's also more interested in the screening and what people thought of it. Shows that he no longer has fear, he believes he is truly immortal and is never gonna die, and this is some hubris that I think will be what brings him down. Homelander is then very disappointed that only 6 of the 30 people believe that he's the one true god. O-Father then tries to play it down by saying that proselytizing is his other superpower and that he can convert the ones who are on the fence. Homelander doesn't care though, as anyone who isn't with him right away must be killed. It's a bit different at Todd & Co, as that was a false flag, but here it shows his disregard for anyone who doesn't believe. He doesn't want to convert people, and he wants people to believe he's a god right away, and is probably motivated by the words of his father, which are obviously still raw. We then see as Deep is still at the jetty from earlier, asking to be moved to a landlocked area. However, his whole thing is water, but if he even gets in a puddle, my guy is cooked. His cowardice is then shown fully as we watch a guy drowning, but the Deep won't save him. He could go in, and God is a hero, but refuses to sacrifice himself for someone else. It's all caught on camera as well, and will likely lead to another PR nightmare for him once more. Back at Vought Studios, Billy and Huey talk about a topless steakhouse, which is something that Milk mentioned to Billy earlier in the season. We then see his Synapse comes in. The psychic is an absolute freak, and he turns into Kessler. We haven't seen Jeffrey Dean Morgan for a very, very long time, and I was a bit disappointed that they kind of just dropped it and said Billy was okay. I also felt like Monkey's dynamic with Butcher was much funnier in the comics, and he was basically just a constant punching bag for Billy. And let us not forget about his fetish for disabled women. We also get an Easter egg to a soup not featured in the show with Dr. Peculiar. On the wall we can see a Vought movie featuring the soup, and Peculiar is a Doctor Strange parody, which this poster hammers home by having the character in an MCU portal made of feathers. In the comics, Peculiar was someone who ran a brothel and could get anything a soup would want to indulge in. The Doctor also keeps a file on each soup who enters the establishment, and in the same issue we learn why Kessler's called Monkey. That is because Dr. Peculiar had green monkeys that made love to Kessler's ears when he was brought along as an official observer. And that is how he got his name. In the comics, Billy and Huey went to get dirt on Jack from Jupiter and ended up blackmailing him. The show changed things up heavily though, with Kessler being a former comrade of Billy in the military who died in a mission gone awry. The scene, I feel, is supposed to show Kessler as a sort of previous Huey, which is something that Lenny was called as well. They were characters who held Billy back, and Kessler died because of Billy's gung-ho attitude. They both went to take out a mid-level ISIS commander, which should have been easy, but they got the call that the commander had backup coming just minutes away. Billy didn't care though, as he's someone who doesn't think about risk, even if it gets those around him killed. You'll actually see a lot of studies that say a lot of people in the SAS have certain parts of them that stop them feeling fear, and they can thus rush into things head on. I feel like this is definitely the case with Billy, and the refusal to escape got his whole unit killed despite him taking out the commander. This highlights that Billy will let anyone die just so long as the mission's completed, which again is a reference to the comics ending. Billy's backstory is similar to the comics as well. In Butcher Baker Candlestick Maker, we learn about his past in the Falklands War. He and his comrades were sent to take a hill on the approach to Port Stanley, but things went south as they went the wrong direction. They were trapped and surrounded, which led Billy to say they needed to assault the machine gun position that was pinning them down. He threatened to shoot the soldiers who wouldn't go on the bayonet charge, which ended up happening. Billy was the sole survivor, and I feel like Kripke's used this as inspiration for the updated backstory of the character. This is kind of a divide tactic by Synapse, with him trying to get Huey to think that Billy will kill him if he tries to stop the plan. Kessler even refers to Huey as Billy's canary, which is something that also comes from the comics. Billy then calls the soup a nonce, which did crack me up. As we see, Synapse has been playing with Billy this whole time, as they knew everything anyway. The psychic then leaves to tell Homelander, and we then cut to O-Father. He says that while they said they believe in Homelander, their thoughts betrayed them, which is very Star Wars-y. What they need are people who will follow Homelander blindly, and if there's even a modicum of doubt, they must be exterminated. Like Todd and his fellow protesters, this focus group's brutally murdered as Dognot and She-Line clear house. O-Father even seems like he wrestles with the decision, as he knows that he's pushing a killer with a killer ego. Though they've not really touched on it much in the season, he is married to Ashley, and I do wonder next time if that's going to be something where they kind of both work together to kill the character. Homelander might even be like Ashley, is O-Father loyal, and this might be the final thing that turns her against the baddie and makes her make a stand. As for this massacre though, we see that She-Line basically fights like a combination of Catwoman and Marvel's Hellcat. Dognot fights like Sabretooth, complete with his roar, and this group is light work for the soups. Luckily, Starlight and Milk then appear. Marvin doesn't have powers, so he just shoots the water tower to spook She-Line. And no, I am not gonna make a wet pussy joke, I am above that. He then helps people escape the theater while fighting She-Line as Annie's busy getting dogged. No, not like that either. As we see, She-Line is insanely agile and she dodges bullets like an agent in the Matrix. Luckily for Milk, he then spots that rat and chucks it at her, which distracts both her and Dognot. That lets Milk take out She-Line and Annie take out Dognot. I'm pretty sure both are dead as well, as the former took enough tranquilizer for an elephant while Dognot looks in a very, very bad way. Which is a shame if he is dead, because I was hoping that Terror would kill him. I'm also still holding out that should Homelander die next week, then Tara runs over and fucks his corpse. Back with Huey and Billy, Huey then asks if what Synapse said was true as the psychic returns to kill them. There is Sicko that wants to make Huey suffer and do this while Billy watches. They play it smart though, and it's through this that we learn why Synapse was in Elmira in the first place. Huey pictures crime scene photos of his little brother's death, and this messes with the villain. As we learn, Synapse was the one who killed him, and he did this with a corkscrew being involved as well. This felt like a nod to X2 to me, where we learn Jason Stryker's mother took a screwdriver to her head after being plagued with images by the psychic. Might not be a screwdriver as well, mate. I haven't seen that film in a while. But this distracts Synapse just long enough for Billy to use his powers. It's a really cool moment, and it did kind of remind me of something from like Alan Wake 2 or Longlegs. Billy then says that he enjoys every soup's death, but I do wonder if he'll stop at Annie and Kimiko should the virus be unleashed, or if he'll go through his ultimate plan to wipe them all out. The virus has kind of been brushed to the side now, but I do think that once they kill Homelander, Huey's going to be like, well, we could still use this. We still use this to kill everyone. And they'll be like, no, destroy the virus once and for all. Because otherwise, the virus seems like it might be a bit pointless. But we will see next week. Huey then tries to call Frenchie. However, as we saw earlier, his phone's broken. And ultimately, this leads to disastrous consequences. Meanwhile, Annie and Milk take the focus group to Marie. She asks for Marie's help, and I really hope she's integral in the finale. As for the home teamers, they can be a way to expose the truth, as they'll have a massive network of influence when it comes to reporting things on Homelander. Frenchie and Sage then try and help Kimiko, and the numbers now work after Sage looked over them. Also, since leaving the Seven, she has been in plain clothes, and we can see that she's wearing a Detroit t-shirt. This is something she's been wearing in non-costume, and this is because it's where the character's initially from. Also, I did try and wrap my head around the equations on the whiteboard, but I'm not something of a scientist myself. I'm just a very overrated YouTuber who wears dresses and stuff. But they are ready to go, and Frenchie starts the process. As we see, the pain is excruciating for Kimiko, which Frenchie clearly struggles with. Kimiko's face then begins to peel off, and Frenchie stops the experiment. His love for her just won't let him go through with it, but with him out the way now, they might be able to do it next week. So yeah, every cloud has a silver lining, I guess. However, this proves that love is illogical, as Frenchie does things to basically sacrifice himself, and also won't push Kimiko through this. She might have been able to stop Homelander with a blast in doing this, but Frenchie turning it off has meant he dies because of it. Luckily for them though, Frenchie set up an early warning radar, giving them a chance to hide. This is something that calls back to season 1, as there they had cameras set up that caught Homelander when they were trying to kill Translucent. However, there's no time to escape here, and Frenchie hides Sage and Kimiko in his ink air vent. This is similar to how he put Translucent's body in his ink box, and as we know, the character can't see through that material.
What can't I see through?
Zinc, Homelander.
Correct. And what's the box made of? Deep?
Zinc.
Correct again.
As we see, he's hoping he can lay a trap, and Frenchie goes to the uranium room. Homelander initially goes to the zinc ventilation duct, because yeah, with him not being able to see through it, he suspects that's where they're hiding. Frenchie distracts him with just a little finger tap though, and I love how Homelander appears just after he does it. Frenchie then tells him they've already recreated Soldier Boy's powers, and he opens the uranium up, which does seem to affect the villain. Frenchie manages to get him to bleed, but we see Homelander is far more durable than last time due to the V1. Like A-Train though, Frenchie is defiant in the face of death, and he says,
I bet you never danced a day in your life.
He's right as well. Homelander is pathetic and only craves fear and power and can't see the enjoyment in life. Throughout season 5 he gained immortality, but what's the point of living forever if you don't actually live? Soldier Boy's someone who just fills his day with hedonism, and Homelander has never really lived at all. It's kind of like last week when Bombsight accepted the loss of his immortality so he could finally live with the love of his life. Homelander then smiles before seemingly killing Frenchie, and Kimiko finds her love with a trail of blood behind him. She says thank you for saving her, but he says,
No. Monka. You saved me.
I would say seemingly because I think the radiation would have got him either way, but it's clear that Homelander has put him in this position, and though we don't see the killing blow, you can kind of draw your own conclusions. I'm sure Eric Kripke right now is answering questions and clearing up, but we might have a better idea next week. In the meantime though, why not leave a comment and engage with a video about what you think happened that we didn't see? Was it the radiation that killed him and he dragged himself off? Was it Homelander? Let me know below. think it's a very fitting end though, as throughout the show, Frenchie struggled with his guilt. Whether it was about killing his short-lived boyfriend's family or what he was putting Kimiko through, it's kind of been something that's always weighed on his shoulders, and he's finally sacrificed himself to save the person he loves. Kimiko inspired him to become better, become sober, and dream of a nice family life, which made him hopeful for the future and better overall. Sadly though, this is a world where very few actually get to be happy, and the pair were always doomed from the start. Even Mill calling them Romeo and Juliet earlier in the season felt like it was kind of foreshadowing what was going to happen. Now though, they don't die together like that famous story. The pair kiss before he then passes away. It's a tragic ending to what's been a very strong character throughout the series, and yeah, watching Frenchie go out like this, very, very impactful. There's no music or shouting, even when Billy and Huey arrive, and as the credits roll, it's just complete silence. Very similar to what happened after A-Train, and as mentioned earlier in the video, this death is a lot different in the comics, which we will break down just a little bit in the spoiler section. As the silence ends, we then hear a cover of Dream a Little Dream of Me by Anne Reburn. It's the same song that Kimiko sang in her head during the first episode of Season 3, and it also played when she danced with Frenchie in Season 3 Episode 7. As we saw, she lost her powers in Season 3, but she regained them after taking Compound V, as she wanted to do good in the world. All this has done though is bring about more pain, and yeah, very sad moment. And already a more ballsy final season than Stranger Things. Who gets to live through the finale? We are going to see though, and that is of course coming next week. Now I am actually a bit anxious about how they're going to fit it all in, and if they'll manage to deliver on everything, since it's been reported that it's just going to be an hour long. Like The Worm and American Eagle, Eric Kripke has a massive task to land the ending. This is something that's notoriously difficult, and it does feel like there's far more hated show endings than loved ones. So we will see next week. But anyway, that is the end of the episode itself, but we do have a bit to talk about in our spoiler section. However, as I know, some of you guys, you don't want to know, things might be spoiled next week because of it, so if you want to dip, I'll forgive you. I'm a good man. I'm not like Homelander. If you're still in this part of the video though, thank you for sticking with me, and as I'm sure you can guess, we're in the endgame now. Now, one of the big things that they hammered across in this episode is that Billy will be the one who drags Huey across the finish line. In the comics, Homelander ended up dying, but Billy still had more work to do. Right after, there was an additional arc in which he continued on his mission to wipe out all the Supes. This included all of his friends and the boys as well. Billy and Huey have been at each other's throats for a long time now, especially this season, and I do wonder if Homelander might die early next week, and then for the second half of the episode, they might continue with the virus plot. In the end, Huey did stop his mentor, saving the day, and Billy said deep down that he'd hope he'd do it because he was the canary that stopped him going too far. So I think the conversation that they have with Synapse, that's teasing that the two will finally come to blows once Homelander's dead. There's no chance that Billy will be happy with just that, despite saying it was all for Becca. As Synapse said, he's dangerous and reckless, and the reveal about Monkey made it feel like they were laying the groundwork for that. I'm really not expecting a happy ending for the cast either, as they've all accepted their fate thus far. Now, we have kind of skimmed through stuff there, and two of the people that Billy killed in the comics were Frenchie and Kimiko. In the source material, he blew up the Flatiron building where the pair were hanging out, and they died together in the explosion. However, I don't actually mind the change here, especially with there being one episode left, as we do kind of need to show that Homelander is dangerous and he can actually kill the boys. So far, that hasn't really happened in the series thus far, but yeah, this shows that he is able to do it. Anyway, that's it for the video, and I'd of course love to hear your thoughts in the comments below and what you thought of the episode. Huge thank you for joining me on this journey. We're almost at the end, and I'm really hoping you guys come back next week. From what I can gather, they aren't sending the episode out early, so the video might be a bit delayed, but if we get it like the day before or something, we will get it out for you in time, I promise you that. So you better stick around, you son of a bitch. I'll wear this dress for you, mate. I do this all for you. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing as well, then make sure you follow us on Instagram at Heavy Spoilers, where we post lots of early looks at stuff, talk about the schedule, what's coming down the line, and just how much I'm loving life because people like you are giving me a thumbs up. We also have our membership program as well, and for just 99 cents a month you can get early access to videos every single week, and it all goes towards buying lovely dresses. If not though, huge thank you for sitting through this video. I've been your host Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.